This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
If I told you half the things I've heard about this Jabba the Hutt, you'd probably shoot me.
I'm here, Jabba. Been waiting for you.
Hello, Mother Hutters, and welcome to Blabba the Hutt, episode 26.
The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome and will gladly pay you the reward of 25,000.
So the only thing that you can tell me is that I will find Jabba at Jabba's palace.
We have a brand new trailer for Rogue One, a Star Wars story, dropped during the Olympics there on Thursday night, I think. And as always, we like to get the whole of Blabba the Hutt together in order to really digest what exactly did we see in this trailer. So on the line and in a big Blabba roundtable that we haven't had since, oh god, it must have been episode 16 or 17, where we all got together to discuss the end of season 2 of the Clone Wars. Joining us once again is our lover of all things dark side, Gary O'Toole. How are you today?
Koto, yeah, everyone.
All good, yeah?
How are we? Yeah, all good. Been a busy week, so it's nice to have an hour catch up on another round table.
It's been crazy. It's been absolutely nuts. And also joining us is our Cartoon Collectibles host, the face of Blabba's YouTube presence, Matthew O'Brien. Welcome to the roundtable. How are you, buddy?
Thank you so much. I'm good, very excited to be here and talk Rogue One.
All you O surname people, you know, it's hard to keep on top of you all.
Yeah.
And then for the first time making his Blabba the Hutt podcast debut is our resident lover and master of all things gaming, Chris Nichols. Welcome to your very first appearance on Blabba the Hutt.
Thank you very much. Hello.
How are you?
Oh, I'm very good. I'm taking a break from No Man's Sky.
I was going to say it's been a busy couple of days for you with No Man's Sky off exploring 18 quintillion planets, right?
Yeah, it's big.
Well, it's not going to be too much of a change of pace because obviously we are going to be talking that galaxy far, far away. So I mean, I suppose you're in the right frame of mind.
Oh yeah, sci-fi all the way.
So guys, everybody, are we all delighted and happy of from what we saw on the Rogue One trailer release?
Yeah.
I realized after I asked that question that it was either going to be complete silence or everybody was just going to jump in on each other. So I suppose let's call a bit of order, and I'm going to go straight to Matt. Matt, what are your initial, after you watch 2 minutes of the first spin-off to a Star Wars story, what's going through your head?
Do you know what? I thought the first trailer, the teaser trailer, was better.
Really?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the trailer. It was great. We got to see a lot. We got to see a bit of dialogue and a bit of banter between Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor, which was nice to see. But other than that, I thought I didn't really know what to feel about it. I feel very excited about it, but I didn't see anything too new. Do you know what I mean by that? We've seen a few glimpses of Jeddah. I thought that was cool. But the same kind of sequence where the tank troopers are rolling through Jeddah, I think. There's some moments in it that I loved, but as a whole, as a trailer, it's great, but I didn't really get anything mad new from it.
Okay, well, I'm excited to dive into that a little bit more with you. But for the moment, we're going to move over to Gary. Gary, first impressions, are they the same?
I think I was a little bit more pleased with it, although lack of dark side. I mean, we didn't get to see too much Vader, and all we got to see was a real angry stare from Krennic. But obviously, whatever has happened at that point, he seems pretty pissed off.
But what an angry stare. Holy crap, that was terrible.
Oh, what a stare. Mendelsohn really seemed to bring emotion to it. And it was actually nice to see the U-Wing for the first time, and the only thing was, I would have been happier if we would have heard its unique sound. You know, everybody's familiar with the sound of the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter, but I don't really think we got to hear it in full throttle as such.
Okay. And Chris?
Well, I like it. I think the visuals are spot on, and I think the angle they're taking is the right way. Like, I wasn't overly excited for Rogue One, actually, to be honest. But when I saw the trailers, I got really excited. I thought, oh, you know what, this might actually be a good direction for the movie. A little bit more serious.
Yeah.
However, I did think that you saw the interaction with the robot and Jin, and I think, geez, I know he's meant to be the comic relief as usual, but I hope they don't feck it up because Alan, the actor behind him, is dead.
Yeah. Well, it's funny actually, and Gary, I know myself and yourself are going to talk at length about how, for me, what's his name? K2SO, is that?
Yes, correct.
K2SO, I think he's got a lot of Mr. Bones features already.
Yeah, I would agree 100%, yeah.
Chris, I don't know.
Especially with the Mr. Bones redesign as well, he looks quite similar.
Yeah, and there was, only for the timeline, I thought it might be, is there a memory chip being put in or something like that? But obviously the timelines don't match up on that. But okay, so just to cover up there, so Matthew is obviously excited for it, but not overly excited for this trailer against what we saw in the initial. Yeah. Gary is very happy, but would like a little bit more dark side, and Chris is just blown away by the visuals. I am very happy with this. I'm not going to lie, this is absolutely everything I wanted from the original trailer from a grit point of view. I think this trailer definitely gives us a feel for what this film is actually going to be, which is ultimately a war movie. And I think I remember, Gary, me and you talked ahead of the release of the original trailer, which is where we were, casting predictions on what we thought we might see. Both of which actually, one was, I wanted this to be a war trailer. I wanted to feel like I was watching a war movie. And then we also said that we thought we might see Vader, which is interestingly both what we saw in this second official trailer for Rogue One. So I think from my perspective, I am absolutely delighted with this. I think we get a lot of insight into characters. I think we'll get a lot of insight into what the story might tell us. But also, we get that little glimpse of the Dark Lord himself. Gary, is this a lot different? I obviously wasn't in the Rogue One trailer or Rogue One panel at Star Wars Celebration. Is this a lot different from what you guys saw?
Completely different. Completely and utterly different, yeah. They really revamped it. There was little whispers before it was coming out that we thought it was just going to be a rehash of what we were shown, but in actual fact it wasn't at all. It was totally different. So that was a real nice surprise.
You're amongst the small percentage of the entire planet who have seen the majority or the most footage for this film.
Well, yeah, probably I would say so. At Celebration, you remember everybody got to see the broadcast of the cast and the crew showing some behind the scenes footage. So look at Scarif, look at the Death Troopers and what it actually takes to film the stunts on the green screen. The trailer that we got to see was essentially that, but without any of the cast and crew. Okay. And it was a bit more it was really much more gritty and sort of live action. So Alice saving Private Ryan, as we discussed at Comic-Con, which is one of the primary inspirations for it. Yeah. No, and that's what I think really pushes through in this trailer over the previous one, which is that kind of Saving Private Ryan or Black Hawk Down influence that Gareth Edwards kind of wanted to bring through in the in the first place. And I suppose I'm going to throw this to you, Matt. Matt, do you think these reshoots have been from what we can see here, we look like we've got a fairly connected story, of which one of my big fears when it came to reshoots was that are we going to lose that connection? Are we going to have a bit more of a disconnected Disney-led story? Do you think these reshoots are ultimately a good thing?
I think I'd say more than likely a good thing in general. I think reshoots are just... I think the media, perhaps social media, takes reshoots as, something's gone wrong. Like, reshoots are as commonplace in a film as, like, this, you know what I mean, as anything. Yeah. It's just a thing, shoots. Like, as the shoot itself. There'll always be some pickup or something like that. I did hear whispers about a rebel trooper, as that shot with the rebel troopers being led through Jeddah, it would seem. One of them had blood on his forehead or something like that, and then in another trailer it was taken away digitally or something like that. Okay. I did hear whispers about that, and that worried me a tiny bit.
That maybe it might not be as gritty
as it's allowed to be, almost. But I do feel overall, in terms of the visuals and stuff like that I said this about The Force Awakens a while ago, they really have nailed the aesthetic of Star Wars. In particular, the shot with the Star Destroyer in the shadow of the Death Star. I don't know
Yeah.
for certain if it's CGI or if it's a model, but my eyes like to tell me that it's a model, and that's really good.
Okay.
You know that
Yeah.
kind of thing where you can discern between CGI and what's a model, and that was really exciting to see. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd say that reshoots are very normal. Like I wouldn't worry too much about. I wouldn't say that the executive sat down and watched the film and then goes, "Oh, you're going to have to reshoot the entire thing." You know, with Disney, that they're going to be a presence on set constantly, and they're relaying information back and forth. This isn't the 60s or the 70s where a director is just allowed to do everything. This is they're working for a client, and the client is well in the loop constantly. So I wouldn't worry too much.
I think it's also ultimately the reason behind. I mean, I think the fear came when the numbers 40-50% of the film was being reshot. But I think ultimately it's down to the fact that the script that was written as the film was evolving was ultimately a better script than the original story. So I think what we're probably going to see is that actually the reshoots were because Disney and Lucasfilm want to give us the best possible film, and especially with this one, this is like probably the most important Star Wars film ever, insofar as it's the first one that steps away from the original saga. It's the first one where we don't really know the characters. They've got a huge job to do here by introducing us to a full suite and a full cast of new characters that, if they screw this up, that changes Disney's plan ultimately in the
long run.
in the run out. Yeah, absolutely. Now I must say, when the trailer opened, we see this big cityscape, and I'm going to assume it's Scarif because everybody's talking about Scarif, and Scarif is the new planet. I was a little bit worried when I saw this because to me it just screamed prequels. It screamed CGI cities. But it was absolutely how incredible was that piano? I mean, that same Imperial March, slow.
Is that's the thing we talked about before? It's called movies are doing it an awful lot now, called nostalgia piano. That kind of, they take a theme tune and they play it softly on a piano, and it's meant to instill some kind of feeling of nostalgia. Yeah. But I mean, I wouldn't say that's the actual final score, though. I'd say that's just I don't think that'll ever appear in the score at all.
No, I don't think so. I think this is purely just setting everything up, and this is kind of. I mean, we did a quick write up on blabbathehut.net, which kind of just gave my very, very quick initial thoughts. And what I love about using that score and something as iconic as the Imperial March and slowing it down and stripping it back just right onto a piano is that we are 2 seconds into this trailer.
Yeah.
And we already know that there's this fear, this impending doom. We're obviously in a very a very low point in the galaxy, and that the Empire has already got its grips. And we know that this is obviously the run into the Death Star. We know obviously what comes after with the original trilogy, but already there's a feeling of just pure anarchy about this film. It's almost like, and Matt, this is something that'll settle with you as an actor, but it feels like we're coming straight in Act 2 of the film. Where everything has already gone to shit.
Yeah, it's kind of, and another thing as well. Like this film will bring us right up to the start of A New Hope. Like we were hearing that episode 8 or 7 will bring us. Episode 8 will take off exactly where episode 7 ended. That's new.
Yeah.
Usually it's like 5 years or 10 years or whatever has passed. But like this is so fast paced that it would almost seem that these Star Wars stories are necessary now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're no longer just fillers, or people could argue that they're money makers or whatever. They seem very necessary.
Yeah.
Jamie,
Gary, you were going to jump in there. I was going to say, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just a question for you. Do you not think the opening with the Imperial March is Jeddah? Because Scarif is supposed to be a water paradise. It's the Maldives. But if we look at the opening shot, the city in the fortress is on
could be Jeddah,
a kind of reddish rock. And isn't Jeddah supposed to be a moon?
And it's got that deserty kind of redness to it. I mean, actually, it's funny that you say that, and it definitely makes sense that it is Jeddah, because I got a huge amount of spaghetti western from what's ultimately, I think, going to be Jeddah.
Yeah.
I mean, the rocks, the background, the backdrop, the Star Destroyer over that. I don't know what do you call this big. I just know them as spaghetti western rocks.
Yeah, no, I know
that,
exactly.
that landscape.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, because I got a bit of a Magnificent Seven/Seven Samurai feel about the whole film in general.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it just feels like, I mean, not to give anything away here, but I just feel that like we're going to have some serious. They've got one movie here, okay, to tell an entire story, which is unlike Star Wars. You know, they've generally got 2 or 3 more to go before they can tell the full story. Whereas at this one, they've got one story. So I think we're going to see a lot more high drama in this than we're going to see in some of the kind of like the timelined trilogies. So that's really interesting that you mentioned the spaghetti western kind of rocks. I know that you meant it by the rocks, but like in terms of the story, I think we're going to get a very, very dramatic piece here. Someone's going to die.
Yeah.
If not, numerous people will die from this cast.
Well, I was thinking about this as well, and I was like, does everybody need to die? Because Star Wars are in this weird place that, like, nobody shows up at the later, and they're only planting, like, the likes of Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, obviously, we know to be, you know, making somewhat of a cameo in this film, you know, that they're planting the people who will ultimately, you know, contribute to the galaxy at a later point in the story. But ultimately, like, what can happen to Jyn Erso or to Cassian Andor? You know, I mean, where can these characters go? Are they just go off into the background or go out and, you know, pick up some work out in the Outer Rim or something?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, to be that involved with the rebellion and then just disappear during A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi is just, you know. But it really does show off the smaller characters in the background. You know what I mean? Even the bit where Jyn Erso stands in the whatever the dropship is, it's a U-wing, I think, and she just says, "Are you with me?" And they all stand up, and I'm seeing characters like just normal rebel troopers, and I love that. Yeah, the Vietnam kind of feel.
Gary, this might your reading of the Battlefront novel might actually lead into, you know, we're going to learn a lot about the fighters and the rebels who are on the front lines here.
Yeah, so, I think it'll tie in quite nicely with it, and with reference to the spaghetti westerns. I think it's that grit that we're looking for. You know, that there's going to be a lot of slugging it out battles, and you're getting to see what it's like on the front line as opposed to up top where the orders and the decision makers are. Exactly, yeah.
And do you think, I mean, obviously the Battlefront novel and Rogue One are at different times, but do you think we're going to see similarities in the way that they treat the frontline fighters, the frontline rebels?
I don't know whether it will take that much of an approach. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter. I actually spoke to Alexander Freed, who was the author, and I asked him a couple of questions about his inspiration for some of the characters, and he said it was just a mix of everybody on the front line. And realistically, with this being classed as, you know, primarily Disney, and with the talk of the reshoots, would it really be that gritty, and, you know, that the front line are just treated like fresh meat, as they're called in Alexander Freed's book, that they're just dispensable, that they, as soon as one goes, another one rolls in? I don't think they'll do that, but I think you will see what the conditions are like, you know, that it's a struggle day to day, and that you're fighting for your life, and each time you might only get one chance at it, and that's it.
What I'm excited to see is that at this point in the rebellion, everything is very new, and everything is very you know, I expect this to be quite chaotic, that, you know, there's no real kind of hierarchy of command, that, you know, whereas obviously there's going to be a certain amount of ranks and whatnot, but there's still going to be kind of almost a case of, you know, roguism, where you know, people are just going out, picking up their weapons and going and shooting people, you know, as opposed to having a lot of real intricate order to the rebellion, because this is in the really early stages of the rebellion. So I think there's gonna almost be a bit of a chaos to the way that they carry themselves.
Yeah. Sort of the way it was described in the book, you know, chaos versus order.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sorry, just to add to that, I think I might be in the minority, but I'd like to see the bittersweet end where they all hit dirt, because, you know, I think it has to be a bittersweet ending. I think they have to kill themselves, or not kill themselves, but die doing this, because it gives weight to Mon Mothma's reference in episode 4. I think I don't think I think I'll be disappointed if they find out how to make this into a happy ending, because it's not. It's an ending that should be sacrifice.
I agree. I completely agree. I think that it's almost, you know, that we need to see Jin and Cassian and whatnot as martyrs. I think, you know, they need to be the ones to pave the way for, you know, what happens in the events of episode 4.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I heard recently the character of Saw Gerrera being described as a fundamentalist, which is nice too, to give a bit of balance to the actual. You can't be. Star Wars has always been kind of criticized for being too didactic with their portrayal of good and evil, whereas I mean, I think Forrest Whitaker's Saw Gerrera is there to kind of balance that out as well. So it's not just like good guys versus the bad guys. It's war, so there's tragedy on both sides, and you know, there's horrid stuff being carried out by both sides, you know.
And what's really interesting is having read Lost Stars and even having read Life Debt, like the way that we see Ray Sloan, who is, you know, the admiral in Life Debt, when we see her vision of what the Empire is, it's actually something that you can kind of be like, yeah, I can understand. You know, she's more about the order of things and not the tyranny that came beforehand. Whereas in Lost Stars, we obviously see the events of the original trilogy from the perspective of the Imperial Army. So I'm interested to see how this rebellion is seen, whether it's as, you know, a courageous set of rebels, or is it going to be essentially a pack of terrorists trying to take down the current regime? You know, because both Life Debt and Lost Stars actually deals with the Imperial side, which makes the rebellion look like a small band of terrorists.
It's a very interesting thing. It's a kind of a almost a bigger question in life in general, I think. But like, when do you become? What's the difference between a terrorist cell and, you know? Do you know what I mean? What defines you as this? It's only when you're given that status by your enemy, inverted commas, that you are an army. Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
by all intents and purposes, the rebellion is a terrorist cell, but in the eyes of the Empire, and has always.
Well,
been.
that's it, and it's the fine line between a freedom fighter and a terrorist, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's just really interesting. That's one of the great things, and I know we're not here to talk about the expanded canon that we've gotten now, but one of the interesting things is that we are getting a lot of perspective from the Imperial side, which kind of makes you look at things like Rogue One in a slightly different light.
Yeah.
You know, that they are these kind of little band of terrorists. That, like, I mean, we're all Irish here. We've kind of 100 years ago, we were this little rebellion. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, I know. I totally agree with you, Jamie. Like, and it's sometimes hard to kind of. I almost want to bite my tongue sometimes because I don't want to go down that route of rhetoric or whatever. But like, you do empathize somewhat with that struggle being Irish too. Do you know what I mean? You kind of go, well, yeah, I can really see myself or my nationality in these characters, and I hope that the entire world can see it from their own perspective, their own national perspective. But it's really similar, and like
it is, and it's becoming more and more similar because, like, and kind of going back to that chaos that I was talking about, that I hope we see with this, you know, evolving rebellion, is that, like, the Imperials have the likes of the AT-ACTs or ATCs and the likes of the Star Destroyers. They have this, you know, suite of ships. They have this full battalion, whereas I want the Rebellion just to have kind of like, well, these are the blasters that we managed to scrounge. You know, these are the rocket launchers. These are the ships that we managed to pull together or fix up or whatever. You know, and that's the way that I would love to see it. And that's the way that, you know, I think, again, not to get too into the Irish politics end of it, but that's the way I would have seen it, you know, the Irish Rebellion to have been 100 years ago. And that's why I think it's again, such an interesting time to be an Irish Star Wars fan, because there are a lot of parallels there.
For sure. And they're undeniable, you know what I mean?
How do we go down this road, guys?
I think Jin's
But
character.
I think it's a bigger question. Sorry,
I was just going to say,
on,
I think Jin's character backs up your theory of a darker background to the rebels here, because, you know, it seems that she's coming from a distasteful past, because she's in shackles, so she must have been a troublemaker. Maybe she was a prisoner of the rebels or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
she's obviously just not very trustworthy. Now,
Can I cut in
agree.
there, Chris?
Yeah.
Just to back up what you've been saying.
yeah,
If you notice, in the actual scene, in the briefing room with the rebellion, she's actually asked, can you be trusted without your shackles?
Yeah.
And then the minute that Cassian Andor unlocks them, she's just like, well, let's get this over with. So is she there of her own accord? Does she actually want to be there? Is it by choice? So is she internally conflicted just as much as other characters that we might see?
So it'll be interesting for me to see what or why do they put this emission in the trust of someone they don't seem to. Sorry, in the why do they trust this person to execute such an important mission? It's weird.
Well, I think, and guys, I could be wrong here, but isn't Jyn Erso's dad the guy who designed this Death Star?
Did he actually design the Death Star, or is he known for just designing weapons of mass destruction, basically?
There was Making Star Wars did do a story. I mean, we're talking probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months ago, which suggested that Jyn Erso's Felicity Jones's character's father was either the guy who designed the Death Star or had the actual blueprints for the Death Star. So I think, to Chris's point, yes, they kind of are a little bit kind of hesitant to trust her based on who she is and, who her father potentially might be. But at the same time, I think she's a little bit, she marches to the beat of her own drum. So therefore, she's not a part of the rebellion, but she's not a part of the Imperial Army, but she's too important to the rebellion to keep in shackles. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to set up a really nice relationship with Cassian? Isn't Cassian described as being, real cool-headed, calm, and controlled under pressure?
Yeah.
I think they kind of
So
hinted
he-
at that,
he-
didn't they? When they were saying okay to each
Yeah,
other.
so he'd be almost like moral shackles.
And I think potentially we could see like some kind of relationship, not romantic, but blossom between the two of them, and then much like Finn and Rey, Finn having to reveal what he actually is or what his true intentions are. Do you know what I mean? But by default, then actually falls in love with the rebellion, so to speak. Do you know what I mean?
There's actually a really interesting part of this that I'm going to get to later on when we talk about characters, but the trailer actually makes a huge suggestion that both Cassian and Jyn are on a planet as it's being destroyed by presumably the Death Star's
I have a
Death Star
theory.
super laser. Oh, a theory. Maybe we'll just go straight into this then, will we?
Yeah.
We're already here, guys. We're already here. We may as well go straight into it.
Let's go for it.
Okay, shall I go and we'll see how we go?
Yeah, go for it.
So predominantly, Mon Mothma announces, that a major weapons test is underway.
Yeah.
And if you actually see the scene where the Death Star actually arrives at what we're suspecting is Jeddah, just after we see K2SO tell Jyn Erso that he's not going to kill her. The Death Star actually looks like it's pointing downward. It almost looks like it's upside down, and it's much closer to the planet than we've initially seen. And at the very start of the film, we see the disc going into the Death Star.
Yeah.
I personally think that's a targeting system.
Oh.
And
Okay.
the reason that I'm saying that is, I don't know if you guys are familiar, maybe it's not something we're going to get into later, but what is actually contained on Jeddah.
I know.
Okay. You know?
So Jeddah is actually rumoured to be the location of where the home of the Kyber crystals.
Okay.
And the vast majority of lasers actually use crystals as targeting or focusing systems. So if potentially the Death Star is being aimed at that planet, if it's not at full power, could the laser be used to potentially mine or harvest kyber crystals?
That's a good point, because
Okay.
ultimately the first planet that was destroyed by the Death Star was Alderaan. Like Tarkin
Yes.
says that. He says,
Yes.
So I don't think we're going to lose a planet, but that's a really good theory, Gary, I think, about the harvesting.
See, I think we will lose a planet.
Oh, really?
I think that we will, because I think this will be a super secret weapons test. Now, maybe if did you say that Jeddah is a moon, Gary?
Jeddah is a moon, yes.
So let's talk technicalities here and say that maybe we'll lose a moon and not a planet. I definitely think
I
we'll see
see.
the super
Yeah.
laser shoot.
But that makes
and I
sense.
definitely think that there's... So my kind of thoughts on what we saw in this trailer is that we see the Death Star with the super laser down at the bottom, as you said, Gary. It was actually kind of jarring when I first saw it. I was like, hold on, that's not what the Death Star looks like, because the laser was in a completely separate position, of which I believe it's pointing over whatever it's gonna destroy. So I think that Jin and Cassian are on this planet, and then we see them, in a state of panic, and then we also see whatever the atmosphere, whatever the setting is around them, collapsing in on them just before they hit hyperspace. So I actually think they're on the planet as it's being destroyed, and I think it's going to be super cool to see them hit hyperspace just as the planet explodes and get it.
And we get to see an eclipse as well, Jamie, that backs up your theory as well.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, there's almost something a bit Starkillerish about that, guys. We are very, very lucky to be joined by the resident queen of droids. Kate, are you here?
Yo, what's up?
Yay!
Yay,
What's
what's
up, Kate? I just got a little notification to say that Kate DeVinco has joined the show.
Awesome.
Kate, fresh off the road from Tucson. How are you? You tired?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't officially talked since you were not over the phone because there's been so much going on since you were in Dublin.
I know, it's been like a month.
Do you miss us?
Yeah.
So, Kate, just to catch you up very quickly, we are talking. Oh, we actually haven't gone in depth into characters or anything like that, but we're kind of giving overall initial reactions. What was your initial reaction on the trailer?
It was good.
Would you
yeah.
care to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's new Star Wars that's really different and unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Yeah. Yet still somehow manages to retain that same Star Wars feel, which I think is really interesting. Mm-hmm. It has that same lived-in, gritty feeling to it. Everything about it is very much, it's not that clean, pristine that we usually see from a sci-fi movie, but it still has that George Lucas-esque lived-in world.
Yep.
Were you ultimately happy with the trailer? Did you think it was better, worse, or on par with the previous one?
I was happy with it. Particularly, it was 2 minutes, but it was like a full 2 minutes. With one of the Force Awakens ones, it seemed like it just kept we had a lot of empty space in it. Mm-hmm. So it might have been technically the same length, but we got way less content.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, do you know what? That brings me very nicely into my next segment, which I'd like to talk about, and I'd like everybody to give their insight into. Guys, we learnt a lot about our cast in this 2 minutes. Every single member of this, more so on the light side than the dark side, but I think that's just because there's more characters on the light side than there is on the dark side. Got a little snippet into what their motivations are in this story. So, I mean, is there anybody who was stand out for anyone? If anybody just wants to jump straight in there.
Sorry, who really stood out for me was Krennic in the trailer. I loved the bit where he's walking through officers, and that really, to me, just kind of, I really can't wait to see what his story is, because from reading the kind of the Darth Vader comics and catching up with that, I realized that the Empire kind of operates slightly differently than how I thought it did before. That there's this pecking order, and that everybody in the Empire are always out especially with the high command, are always out to usurp each other, to kind of take the chair out from under the next guy, and get and I really thought, as Krennic was walking through all those Imperial officers, I got this feeling of like massive ego and massive kind of like superiority complex, and this fundamentalist head on him. And that was fascinating. So I really want to see more about him. And obviously, K2 so as well. I just think he's gorgeous.
Yeah. Gorgeous. Hey?
Yeah, I think he's gorgeous. I love his
agree.
design. Yeah. He's like he's like a mixture of Proxy from the Force Unleashed and is it HK-47? From the Knights of the Old Republic, that droid. The kind of serial killer.
I never played Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, well, there's a droid in it that kind of reminds you of him. But yeah, he's great. I think he looks great. I can't wait to see more of him.
Chris, did you play Knights of the Old Republic?
I did years ago, unfortunately. So I can't remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately because it was years ago, or unfortunately because you played it?
No, unfortunately because it was years ago. It was a classic game.
Oh, okay.
That was a great game, yeah.
God, you make a lot of enemies if you bad talk, KOTOR.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that. I was like, okay, we may have to cut Chris off. No, I think K2SO, I think he's going to be that comic relief, but no, I'm definitely seeing a lot of Mr. Bones. A lot of actually Proxy is a great example of what we think we might see in him, because again, Proxy has that kind of almost human humor to him that we see in K2SO as well. Actually, Queen of Droids, Kate, how did you feel K2SO came across?
I really like him. I'm excited
You didn't?
for another droid.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said you didn't.
What? No.
Yeah. Excited for another droid. Actually, it's probably important at this point to say that we unfortunately lost Kenny Baker to the Force this weekend, which is obviously a huge loss. And obviously our thoughts are with him and his family.
Credit to Matthew as well for a stunning video that he put out.
Yeah, huge video. Matt, good job. Straight off the back, did you decide, I have something to say and you all need to listen?
We were doing, sorry to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but we were doing the latest episode of Cartoon Collectibles, and literally as we were describing the figure itself and the fact that you'd really need to complete the set, R2D2 and C3PO and Luke, you can really picture the scene. We found out through you guys, actually, through the Slack, and we were like, oh god. So we took a few minutes, just the camera was there, we said might as well just shoot something for him, because he was such a giant in especially the convention circuit.
Yeah.
He was amazing. He was really amazing. I was lucky enough to have met him. So
yeah, I've met him twice at this point, and he was always such a nice guy. I actually have this really I think it's a very typically Irish memory of him. Yeah. In that I think it was 2009, was it, Matt, that he was in the City West?
Right. That's right. I think it was 2009 or 10. One of them.
And I met him at Invasion Dublin. It was the first time I'd been to a Star Wars convention. It's the first time I'd managed to meet anybody from the Star Wars world. Jeremy Bulloch was there. Kenny Baker was there, and got chatting away to Kenny Baker and his wife. His wife is a beautiful woman as well. She's lovely.
Yes.
And we were just chatting away or whatever, having a good time shooting the breeze or whatever. And then about an hour later, I sat down at a table in the canteen area of a con, which you can imagine is as chaotic as they come. And I was just chatting there, or just sitting there having a coffee with my little brother, and who's sitting at the table next to me but Kenny Baker and his wife eating a box of curry chips. And I was just like, you know what? Where in the world would you get, R2D2 sitting at the table beside you eating curry chips with his wife? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, it's always just been my kind of favorite memory of him, and kind of just says a lot about him. He wasn't, he wouldn't, go off into the background, and he was never one to kind of command anything from. And Matt, you would have worked obviously with the show, but he definitely never seemed to command too much by way of writer or anything. He was very happy just to sit there, chill with all the convention goers, and just do his own thing.
He was great.
Anyway, back to Rogue One. I tell you, I could sit here and talk about Kenny Baker all day. What do you think about the ships and the mechanics that we see in this one? Now, Gary, you've already mentioned the U-wing, so I'll send it straight over to you.
Yeah, well, just while you're mentioning, in terms of characters who we're really looking forward to seeing, this trailer was the first look we got at Bodhi Rook, so played by Riz Ahmed. And if you'll notice, he had an Imperial arm patch.
Yes,
so
actually, I did notice this.
And that was literally it, and I thought it was great because it's going to leave us with more questions than there is answers. So from what I understand, he has actually defected to the rebellion. So is there the possibility of a double agent role?
Cool.
And it actually appears, and on one of the still shots, it actually appears that he's the one actually in the U-wing that we see. I think the still apparently shows one of the transport sections where all of the equipment is kept within the U-wing. But leading on then to the... Yeah. Sorry,
no, I was just going to say there, just sticking with characters for 1 second, I am incredibly excited for Donnie Yen's character.
Oh, yeah.
Such confidence in the Force and such confidence that, in himself being guided by the Force for somebody
Early reference to Church of the Force.
Exactly, yeah. For somebody who's not Force sensitive, but is in the same mind frame as
Lor San
Tekka and Maz Kanata. We're starting to see a lot more characters again retrofitting, but seems to work. We're seeing a lot more people who are living the way of the Force.
Yes.
At this point, if you think about it, how long has it been since the galaxy has seen a Jedi? They've all either been eradicated or gone into hiding.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Do you think we'll see Lor San Tekka at all?
Ooh.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility, especially, I'm trying to think, I think timelines would match up. He'd obviously be a lot younger. Lor San Tekka is what, would he be 80?
Yeah, I think you could get away with him being maybe in the 20s.
Between 40 and 50 then. I don't think we'll see him.
He knows Leia.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't think we'll see him, but I think, there could be reference to him. There could be reference to the Church of the Force. But I think this whole Church of the Force thing is becoming very, very important. Especially when it comes to, the likes of the Force trees and whatnot. Like, there's a lot more to the Force now than just something that a Jedi has,
Midichlorians.
yeah. Let's not get too scientific.
I think the Church of the Force are responsible for the safekeep of Jedi artifacts.
Possibly.
That's something that's just been kind of going through my mind, that if you were a Jedi and you were on the run and hiding as a recluse, where could you potentially keep your artifacts safe? Jedi artifacts are just as important to Jedi as they are to Sith, or whatever the Sith equivalent might be.
Yeah. Chris, anybody stand out for you by way of characters?
I'm liking the... I think there's potential for a good story between K-2SO and Cassian, I think it is. Because I think Cassian reprogrammed him. So it'll be interesting to see that kind of friendship. But I think there might be a dark horse with Wen's character, Baze Malbus. I think there's something about the little snippet we see that might make him actually more interesting. He might turn out to be more interesting on screen.
I actually think Baze he does look like a very interesting character insofar as I think he's that hardened war veteran. I think he's going to be relatively, almost a little bit roguish or a little bit, Han Solo-ish. He might do his own thing when he needs to do his own thing, but is more than happy to lend his ability and his himself to the rebellion.
Yeah. I think he interests me most, mainly because I can't pigeonhole him. The other ones I've kind of pigeonholed. I think some of them will just play a certain cast that we see a lot, but because we haven't seen much of them, I think I'm interested to see what's there.
Yeah, and there's one elephant in the room that we nobody's mentioned. It's the return of Vader.
Yeah.
Did you guys talk about Saw?
We haven't actually talked about Saw.
Okay.
Could
Anybody?
we really call it a Vader return with the back of his head?
Well, he's returning into our cinematic life.
Do you think the breathing was a little bit too predictable, though? Was anybody hoping for more?
Yeah, just a word, like a line or a sentence. Something would have been nice.
I don't know. I think it was pretty perfect. I mean, we all knew it definitely didn't surprise us. You know, we knew he was coming. We knew he was confirmed. You know, I think just that little hat tip, little nod to the to Vader, I think was perfect. I don't know whether
it wasn't as good as the Rogue One teaser.
Oh, really?
Where at the very end, the one that we got to see, where it just phases to a panel and you just see the reflection. It was much more menacing, whereas you just see the back of his head. It reminded me of Spaceballs almost.
Darth Helmet.
Yeah. I actually hope he's not a very dominant character. I think he might take away from the movie a little bit. I hope he's
Kathy Kennedy said he'll be used sparingly.
I
perfect.
think that'll work out better.
Good.
I think he seems to be the person that he's probably not visually going to be represented too much, but I think his presence will be felt throughout, insofar as he's kind of the chess master.
Yeah. That's a good move. That's a wise move, though, to use him sparingly. Because I think at this stage, Vader is still super cocky about his abilities. Like, sorry to bring up the Vader comic again, but considering it's now canon, like in the Vader comic, he's not so cocky because the Death Star blew up. Do you know what I mean? So now he probably thinks that he doesn't need to get involved.
He's very much in, he's fallen out of favor with the Emperor because of the results of the Death Star. And I suppose, well, I mean, he could be cocky here because this is ahead of the Death Star being destroyed.
Yes, so he's full of the showy de vivre, so to speak.
Exactly, we could see a more kind of showman of Vader. But I think one of the most exciting things about this is the return of James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we got him in Star Wars Rebels, but I mean the return of James Earl Jones and the return of probably the most menacing villain in nearly in all of cinematic history.
It's a good opportunity to establish the fear that people have of him, because that kind of is just alluded to in the movies, really, as Darth Vader.
Yeah, and the fear that people had back in the 70s is not necessarily as prominent in today's cinema goer. Like, I mean, he was terrifying back in the 70s, but whereas we've grown up with him, I mean, he's on every Star Wars t-shirt, he's in multiple toy forms. He's just become a character to kind of later generations, that we could have an opportunity to actually reestablish that fear and that that crazy bad guy that Vader was always set out to be.
I was hoping we'd find out who was in the hood.
In the first trailer?
Yeah, bowing with the Imperial, with the Royal Guard. I was really hoping we would have gotten more of a glimpse of that.
Well, you'd have to.
That's just a throwaway scene.
Yeah, I think that could be a little bit of a red herring. Just let everybody talk about the Bacta tank and probably never make it into the movie.
You know what? I think that's just Vader, though. I think that's Vader in that tank.
I think it could be Galen.
Yeah, but I mean,
I think it could be Jin's father.
Yeah,
it could be.
The only thing about it is that the Imperial Guards there, or the Royal Guards there, would have to suggest that the Emperor is not too far from wherever that Bacta tank is.
Yeah, true enough.
Okay, so moving on then, we've got the ships, we've got the walkers, we've got the amazing shot of the TIE fighter, which probably is one of my favorite visuals in the entire thing.
Oh my god, did that not remind you of Rebels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say.
Yep.
That's so Rebels.
Well, okay, Matt, go first. What excited you about the way the new might be Rebels? What excited you about the new look of the Imperial Armory?
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool. Even at Celebration, we were I was there with poor Rod. I had to take his camera because I took so many photos on my own that it clogged up.
He's used it all up on Snapchat.
That's true enough, yeah. But I just was taking photos of everything. It was ridiculous. But the costumes are fantastic. I particularly love the tank troopers and I love the death troopers. I just think they look brilliant. I really like the way they haven't gone too off the beaten track with the stormtroopers. They're still the same good old incompetent stormtroopers that we know and love.
Yeah.
I particularly love. Sorry.
Go on.
No, I particularly love the rebels though. The rebels look great. I mentioned already in the back of the U-wing, you could see one rebel to the left, just next to kind of Donnie Yen's character, and he looks like he's genuinely wearing a like a Vietnam kind of esque helmet. It looks great. Mm-hmm. Looks really cool.
Yeah, and just on what you said there about the stormtroopers, I actually felt that the stormtroopers commanded more fear.
Yeah.
In this in this trailer and in Rogue One. I think they're not going to be that kind of incompetent, can't hit, a target.
Question for the floor.
And I think, go.
Just in what you were saying, Jamie, are the Death Troopers Vader's personal force, or are they Krennic's?
I'd say Krennic's.
I think we would have seen them in another part of the, the galaxy if they were in any way related to Vader.
I'd say
there's been a lot of that on Twitter.
Some rows between the Royal Guards and them. We're better. No, we're better. We've got
Guys,
Red Army.
What do you think of the AT-ATC?
Yeah.
Oh, with the cargo?
Yeah.
I like them.
Take a pounding.
And did you see when he got shot by the missile that there was almost like a feline or like almost an animal instinct with the way the head shakes?
Yeah.
Aww.
They're really cool looking. They really are great looking. They're so ominous. I mean, they really remind me of Battlefront when I'm playing Battlefront. There's, it's almost indiscernible between watching that Rogue One trailer and watching like a trailer for Battlefront. They're almost...
and I think a lot of that is down to the fact that in Battlefront, I mean, is one of the few times we've seen, like, I know they're not AT-ATs, but, we've seen an AT-AT outside of Hoth. You know what I mean? I think they'd always been synonymous with just being, transport carriers for Snow Planet. But, what we're learning now is that they're used on Tatooine and Battlefront, they're used in Scarif here, that they're actually just another form of, invasive transport for the Imperials.
Isn't that what it's all-terrain, though? Like, isn't that what it stands
for?
for?
100%. Yeah. All-terrain armored cargo transport is the new one. But that's what I'm saying is that, like, even though, all-terrain armored transport is what AT-AT was, because we only ever saw them on Hoth, we just assumed that they only ever traveled, even though they were all-terrain, they only ever traveled on snow. Well, maybe, I think that was just the, because we had never seen them anywhere else. But now we're seeing them in lots of different situations. And albeit it's a little bit strange seeing them in such a tropical climate.
Yeah.
Do they rust?
I'm sure they do.
The practical questions. Blabba the Hutt asking the practical questions of Star Wars. How hot is it in that pot?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Ray's one seems to have lasted long, though, on Jakku, so I don't think they rust too badly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But now, having said that, the Scarif is a more tropical climate, so it would have a lot more salt in the air because of the water.
I love the way we're giving this real consideration. You're right, Jimmy, you're right.
This is scientific,
Science.
Science.
Yeah, science.
Yeah.
I think they would have galvanized their materials by now.
Yeah.
I think they would have. There's probably some kind of mixed compound that, is not available in our galaxy that they have that they've come up with.
Yeah, and the galactic holonet.
Chris, from an actual graphics point of view, what do you think? Do you reckon this stands up against everything else that we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's funny, I think Alan hinted that his robot is CG. Okay, so. And I think they did a very good job on making it seem like it's real. Because I know in Force Awakens, nearly all the characters are physical. And I'm not sure how much of Queso is physical, given what Alan said.
Yeah.
But there's some shots that you can freeze in the trailer, and the composition is spot on. Like. The lighting, everything is spot
everything
on.
about
I don't think there's anything that's going to stand out or be weird or not. I think it's gonna be real nice.
Like as I said, the only thing that straight away kind of felt a little bit jarred for me was just that opening shot of the city, as I thought it felt very prequels. But other than that, I did notice that there is kind of a heavier, I suppose, requirement, or there's they're using CGI a lot more in this, but I think that's just down to budgets. That The Force Awakens had this massive budget. It was the re-entry of Star Wars back into the cinematic world, and therefore it was literally they'll build anything they possibly can. But I think that Gareth Edwards, obviously it's a smaller budget. I think they were a little bit more reliant on CGI, and I think we will probably see that. But I think it'll be done in a way that they've learned from what the prequels gave us, and I think naturally it's a much grittier movie. It's gonna lend itself to better CGI visuals.
I think so. Like they do get their scale nailed down. Yeah. Like the shot of the Death Star, not Death Star, the Star Destroyer hovering above what we think is Jeddah. Like that's a real nice shot when you look at it. And even if it is CG, like they still nailed the visual properly. Like, it doesn't look like it's the trilogy.
The scale
it doesn't look like it's the the episode 1, 2, and 3 kind of CG. It looks like it's a little bit more modelly.
Yeah, it's pretty. And actually, I don't know if you've seen. There's this new, and if anyone has it open, watch it. There's this new like Imperial ship, which almost look like it's some kind of a whale with fins or something. The wings start up high and then move down low and come underneath the base of the base of the ship.
Reminiscent of
it's a
the
mad looking
Imperial
one.
shuttle. It's cool.
It's got like the 4 kind of shuttle wings, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I think sorry, what's his name in the Imperial uniform?
Krennic?
Not Krennic. No.
Bodhi?
Yes. His character, I think he's like a shuttle pilot for that, because he looks really like he's in kind of overalls, like a manual labor for the Empire, as opposed to like anyone of mad status. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of operates one of those shuttles, they seem to be going to and fro from the Star Destroyer, so they're obviously loading stuff up there. So I think he's going to pilot.
There's another practical use of spaceships and Star
I also
Wars.
think that's the ship that gets blown up.
Yes,
at 126.
that's the exact one.
Just the Death Troopers are shooting, and then the next shot is one of those transports blowing up.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so, do you reckon it's Bodhi that? Yeah, Bodhi looks like he might be like, I don't know, the mechanic for the rebellion or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving on. Then we have the worlds. So we see Scarif, we see Jeddah, we see this new blue-looking planet. Is that?
Do you think that could be Scarif just from the air?
At night time, maybe? I don't know. Like, because we see the X-wings going through it. I don't think they'd be keen to bring too many new planets into this story, because again, they've got so much to tell, and Matt said it that they don't have the luxury of 3 films to tell this story. But it looks more like kind of a rainy planet. It's where we see Baze basically shooting at something. Is there anything on these planets that excites any of you guys?
From what I've been reading, apparently the atmosphere on Scarif is breathable to humans.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from that point of view, I think Scarif is where the Death Star was built, or where it was shielded.
Okay.
Because if we see that planet at night, like you said, if it's a water-based planet, if there's potentially stormy, bad weather like that X-wing scene where they're flying through like the crevices and the canyons, if weather was potentially really bad, could that hide something as big that would make something sort of camouflage in a way, or a hidden base? Yeah.
So you reckon it was in atmosphere before it was put up into space?
Yes, that's what I think. It was hidden on Scarif. I think Scarif is the kind of key planet when it comes to the building of the Death Star.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that I think we will. Obviously, I mean it is the introduction of the Death Star as a whole. So I think we will need to see the planet from which it was built.
And that's a combination of an inhospitable environment versus a hospitable atmosphere. So maybe there's enough camouflage that something could be quite covert, but at the same time not putting any of your manpower or resources at risk.
No, absolutely. I think you're probably not too far wrong. Scarif obviously is going to be a part of Battlefront. It's going to be the new DLC, and we learned that as soon as you go see Rogue One in cinemas, you'll be able to go home and download Scarif and play as Jyn Erso and Director Krennic.
That's gonna be cool. That's gonna be cool.
Yeah, it's a cool little experience, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it fits so well into it now. You know what I mean? If you got that as a DLC, it wouldn't feel too jarring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because by making Director Krennic a playable character in Battlefront, like, I mean, they wouldn't make Tarkin a playable character in Battlefront because that's not his style of character. So that means that, I mean, we see Krennic walking through the water, you know, on the front lines of a war. So, I mean, I reckon Krennic must be a fairly hands-on leader. You know, I think he's going to be a part of the war.
Yeah.
Didn't Mendelsohn say he's like he's a character that not many will have come across before in terms of his intelligence, battle strategy, and things like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is he going to be on par with Thrawn?
Ooh, is anybody on par with Thrawn?
Why didn't they just make him Thrawn?
I think, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there was definitely an opportunity to do so, especially with, you know, the white cape. There's a lot of similarities there.
The one thing I like about Thrawn, though, sorry to interject there, the one thing about Thrawn I like is that I don't think he's as power hungry as Krennic.
Yeah.
I think Thrawn is one of those characters who enjoys his job, from exactly where he is. He has no mad illusions of grandeur. He's just incredibly efficient at what he does, and I can't wait to see him in season 3 of Rebels. Whereas Krennic, I just looked at him and I kind of go, yeah, that's a guy who's out to really, you know, make his mark on the Empire. You know?
Yeah. I think I agree with you that Thrawn is more like he enjoys the intricacies of war, and he enjoys the, you know, how each move affects what can be done next and whatnot. Like, I'd imagine he's a person that if you were to sit down and play a board game with Grand Admiral Thrawn, you know, he'd be so strategic in his, you know.
He'd be a nightmare.
Don't play Risk with that guy, dude.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can Krennic be competing with Vader?
Yeah,
and 100% think you could be onto something there. I mean, and back to what you were saying, Matthew, which is that, you know, we learned through the Vader comic that, you know, there's a pecking order, and everybody's out to kind of shaft everybody else.
Yeah, big time, and that's why I love that.
I was going to say, just to edge on what Matthew was talking about regards to the Vader comics and doubts, and it's something that was quite poignant. We're still looking at it as a case of Vader at this point is more man than he is machine. So could we get to see those doubts portrayed on screen, or a different type of internal conflict than we're used to seeing?
I think to preserve Vader's character, and I mean, we know he's a ruthless character in this one, and again, we know that we're not going to see a whole lot of him with him being used, quote unquote, sparingly. I don't know whether we'll see too much by way of character development, but more so, again, he'll just be that underlying current that you know helps to keep all the parts moving. Throughout this film.
I agree.
There does seem to be a lot of, I mean, like, your man Bodhi has the Imperial patch on. Obviously, we saw Jyn in the TIE pilot uniform she was in the first trailer.
Yeah, it looks like a TIE. Yeah, it is a TIE pilot uniform because it has the front.
Yeah, and then K2SO also has the Imperial symbol. So, I mean, again, it just goes back to this little rebellion that just seems to be kind of scrounging any tech it can, and any people it can from the Imperial Army. Yeah.
You know, in terms of insignias and logos within the galaxy, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that was the insignia of the Old Republic. Do you know what I mean? It naturally... You remember Obi-Wan's Starfighter on Geonosis sported that insignia, the cog, the Imperial cog. I wonder if there's some kind of empathy towards that. Like, you would think as a rebel leader that you would want to scrub that off. Do you know what I mean? Especially
And
off
start fresh.
K2SO and be like, get that off you. It's disgusting. It's what we're against. But it's like, I suppose you could compare to it, I suppose, how the Nazis used the swastika, which was originally a Buddhist symbol, which they, bastardized themselves.
Repurposed, yeah.
So it's just interesting psychology of all of those kind of insignias and, just those small references within the movie.
The use of signs.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Pretty
guys,
handy to blend in, isn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose as we kind of come to the end, I mean, we've talked inside out. I've just looked through the trailer here again. We've talked inside out on absolutely everything that's there. Ultimately, what has this trailer done for you in your anticipation of this film? And I'm gonna throw that straight to Kate.
Yeah, like I said, I'm excited, but like, unlike with The Force Awakens, like, I kind of don't want to hear anything else about the movie until December. I feel like I'm good to go now, and I just want to wait and see the movie based on the trailers and all the information I have based on what from this point on.
Yeah. And Gary?
To echo the sentiments of what you guys have said, that I think it's going to be very much an Act 2 where things are potentially as low as they can be, and it's going to be a life or death scrap. And to echo what Chris said, it's that if it is to be the case, then I think sacrifice has to be the end game. But I think it set it up quite nicely, and I'd agree with Kate. I kind of don't want to hear anything more from it.
Do you think from a story driver point of view they've told us a lot? Or do you think, again, they're just throwing red herrings at us in that we're able to put together a story based on this trailer that, we're not going to get? We're going to get something completely different.
Well, I think Garrett Edwards was very poignant at the Rogue One panel when he said that he, used his favourite Star Wars movie as inspiration, but it wouldn't do it justice if he wasn't to make little changes and put his own stamp on it, which appears to be very dark and gritty. And I think he should be credited for that, for having the guts and the boulder to actually do it. And obviously if there's 40-50% reshoots, whatever it was, I can only see that as a good thing, because it means they're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and that they want it to be the best movie that it can be, to, I suppose, if it's being inspired by what we all probably see as the best of them all, that it's honouring that in a very positive and modernised way, that they brought it on a modern front.
Matt, you were, I'm not going to say unimpressed. Maybe unimpressed is too harsh a word, but you are unimpressed with the with the trailer. Yeah, I'm still gonna use it because does that dampen your excitement for the film? And we probably would have made a full hour podcast on Donnie and Sue then. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Of the film, yeah. What would have made this a little bit? I mean, what I kind of felt from the trailer was that it was nice to, everything we'd seen was almost like a recut of everything we'd seen previously. So what I liked about this was that, okay, there was still some of the shots that we've seen previously. For example, the stormtroopers coming through Jeddah on the tank. There was some shots still in there, but what would have really pushed this into a good space for you? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. 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 Awesome. And Chris, visually, and I, as our games guy, I suppose I keep going back to the visuals for you. But are you excited for this film? Are you excited, maybe more so than you were for The Force Awakens?
Yeah, I think they have it right. Visually, I think it looks great, but I'd say that I would have probably liked to see a little bit more of the Imperials. And if they do another trailer, and they probably will, I hope that it's more focused on the other side, because they're very two-dimensional. And I think that it's a great time. The movie is in a great time in the timeline to kind of crack that two-dimensional image and give the Empire an argument.
I completely agree with you that it did seem very weighted towards the rebel side of the story, but I think that's only natural with, I think we've got more players on the rebel side than we do on the Imperial. But no, I do think I'd like to see a little bit more about Krennic. I think even like the 4 seconds that he's in this trailer, I mean, it tells you more about him than I think they need to. I mean, he's so intimidating. You can see, he commands as he walks through all of his officers and whatnot. But I definitely I'm excited to see more about him. Kate, who won the Olympic stuff that you were watching when you accidentally saw this ad?
Oh,
I know you were glued. I know you were glued to the Olympics.
As soon as I found out it could be watched online, I turned off the Olympics.
So
I have been watching some of the Olympics, though.
You didn't watch Michael Phelps win his 150th gold medal?
I think it was swimming and gymnastics that night, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it probably was Michael Phelps. See, that's kind of what I was saying, is that, like,
yeah, he was on that night, but with social media and everything, you basically know everything that's going to happen, and so.
So how does this set you up now for December? Are you excited for this? Well, I mean, obviously we're all very excited for this, but in comparison to where you were kind of this time last week, what has this trailer done for you?
Last week?
Yeah.
How about last year?
Well, I mean, like a week ago we had a certain amount of information, and obviously then in true Lucasfilm fashion they decided, you know what, you're going to get a trailer tomorrow. They didn't give us any real forewarning. It was just watch Michael Phelps jump in a pool, and you might see some Star Wars,
right.
What has this done to change or to increase the excitement for Rogue One?
Well, I was already excited before, so it's Star Wars. Like, they can't. What more can they do?
And so was it everything that you wanted and more?
It's such uncharted territory. I just don't know what to expect, and so I don't know. It's just weird. I'm excited though. That's
very much where I am, and I kind of like as I pick questions with all of you, I kind of pick little bits out as well, and that, like, Matt, you said that this finally settles the schoolyard. What if this happened, and what if this is how they got the plans, and what if Luke missed the shot or whatever. That this finally will kind of tell us the story of how the Death Star was ultimately brought down. But then also I echo what Kate says, which is like it's such an uncharted territory from a Star Wars perspective, from multiple angles. One is which, like, it's no longer a Skywalker story. It's no longer anything to do with the original trilogy. It's nothing to do with, obviously it's something to do with the original trilogy, but it's something to do with the events and the characters to do with the original trilogy. So therefore, we can see a slightly different Star Wars. We can see a Star Wars from, the people who really kind of pushed this rebellion through. And that's kind of what has me most excited at the moment. And I think December is going to be an exciting time. Kate, have you bought your tickets to come back to Ireland for December yet?
No. Only if it's the premiere.
Are we going to get a Rogue Friday?
As in like a
Force Friday?
Mm-hmm.
A Force Friday for Rogue One? Yes, I think it's been announced. It hasn't
Isn't it
been
the
confirmed
first
what
September?
the date is.
First Friday in September?
I haven't. It was about, again, 6 or 8 months ago. It was announced that there would be another Force Friday, of which a lot of it was obviously going to focus on Rogue One, but I haven't heard anything further from it. I did ask Disney Ireland, but I heard they kind of just said, look, we can't confirm anything because they were still waiting on their own confirmation from the global end of things. But I think given the mass success, both financially and PR wise,
well, that's coming up, so
yeah.
So no, straightened out.
I definitely think we're going to get a Force Friday.
Cut the channel, Red 2.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for taking an hour and a bit out of your Sunday evening to come and talk Star Wars with me on Blabba the Hutt. Kate, it's great to actually finally get you back into the show. I feel like we haven't talked in so long between between releasing the Celebration one and then before that I had done the quick episode on queuing in Celebration, and then obviously myself and the lads in Dublin Comic Con did the guys stepped in and did a great job as well. It's good to have you back on the roster, Missy.
Thanks. Good to be back.
No, well, guys, thank you very much for talking. I think it's quite obvious that we're all very excited and very
except Matt.
Except for Matt.
With everything. Meh.
I think your next episode of Cartoon Collectibles should just show how unimpressed you are.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Guys, it's always a pleasure talking Star Wars with you.